We've got bodies back in the building. We're going to have players on the field, helmets on, some jerseys. It's that time. Look, we did free agency. We did the draft. Now it's time to actually get back to football, and certainly a lot of changes for this Cleveland Browns team with the amount of roster overhaul and certainly coaching overhaul. John Kosko is here to talk with us. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. Like I said, we are joined by PFS John Kosko. I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keeps growing. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel to catch everything. And the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, John, it was very interesting. Obviously, the Browns now finishing this, three draft seasons of kind of mostly being spectators due to their heavy investment into the Deshaun Watson trade. So for Andrew Berry, you're always changing. Your job is never the same. So more of a focus on free agency, possible trades in the offseason that they've done, one of each the last three off seasons. Andrew's not going to let me down. There's still going to be something done at the tight ends position at some point, sometime. But John, you look at this roster and, we know there was work for Baltimore. You're a good team. You lose a lot of players. Pittsburgh, obviously a huge influx of changes over there. Cincinnati, most of it similar to the Browns. Health of your quarterback, maybe going to portray where your team is actually at for the season. But this Browns roster versus the rest of the AFC North, there's not much left to be done. Each team certainly could have a tweak or two here between we start kicking off in September. But kind of where the Browns roster and the rest of the AFC North all stack up, and it's going to be another killer year in this division.
Yeah, AFC North, you can always just expect it to be a really competitive division. All the teams are going to be vying for a playoff spot. Obviously, with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, as long as Joe Burrow is healthy, they're going to be a Super Bowl contending type of team. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, we know he's always just a winner. Regardless of what you think of him as a passer, he's a darn good football player. And puts a lot of stress on defenses, and they win a lot of games with him at the helm. The Steelers, they just always have a really good, strong roster, especially on defense, and they're always in the thick of things. Even though on paper they probably have the weakest roster, I like the moves that they made this offseason, especially in the draft. I thought they really bolstered their offensive line. It's going to take some time for that team to gel together. And the jury's out on excuse me, on their quarterback position, obviously, with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Both got, I'm not a huge Justin Fields fan. I think that, he can't read defenses very well, and he has poor processing. And Russell Wilson kind of has a lot of the same issues and was able to kind of get away early on in his career, and for most of his career on a lot of athletic ability, extending plays and having a really good deep ball. But he's not that same caliber of player anymore. So, whoever emerges from there of being able to lead that team, they're still just going to be a really strong team because they always are. So it's just going to be another bloodbath year in the AFC North, and it's really anybody's game. I'd say I don't think the Steelers are going to win the division, so it's up to, it's either one of the other three teams to be able to win it. And it really, I think it's kind of driven by the quarterback usually, and that's Joe Burrow. In my opinion, he's the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. So I think it's going to be Browns probably have the best roster top to bottom, and it's always driven by the quarterback position. So if Deshaun Watson gets back to his old ways, then the Browns can legitimately win the division.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think Pittsburgh, it's going to be more of a case of, basically reloading this year. The offensive line depth that they chased in the draft was absolutely necessary for this team, with the understanding it's going to take a little time for all of that to gel. And look, these guys come in and you kind of got to, learn what you don't know. And then maybe the Steelers, as you pivot from 24 to 25, then it's more about, what are we doing at the running back position? What are we doing? Who truly is the quarterback that fits what we currently have going on? So that it's going to be the fun aspect of it. And, for the Browns going into this, off season, and unlike many other years where it was about the draft or about free agency, this year for Cleveland, it was more about retaining what they had. And, they did a great job with that. And, it was only a few hours before all of a sudden, that the pieces, that were headed to free agency, the Browns were bringing back the Mo Hursts of the world, certainly the Shelby Harrises of the world, the Zadarius Smiths of the world. And I think for me, and John, obviously the defensive player that you are, this is the thing I really look. We all want to see what's going to go on with the offense with all the changes that are going to be there as far as, some personnel and certainly the coaching. But this Jim Schwartz defense going into year 2, nobody thought they were going to hit the ground running like they necessarily did in 2023. But now it's more of a, hey, we were doing this. Maybe it doesn't fit. So we're going to alter some things or whatever. But I look at that defensive line. I look at this secondary, and it's just the perfect mesh of what you want. I mean, you want physical corners who can play man, so you can let your pass rushers do their thing. Also, while that is making life easier on your coverage. It's probably one of the things I'm most excited about as we start to look into 24, essentially opening up for business.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he adjusts based off of last year, because you can't just do the same thing and expect the same results, especially on defense. So, obviously you have this defensive line that's mostly back, and then you're adding, hopefully more productive guys in the interior, right, and especially Michael Hall. So I think for this Browns defense, you're going to get after the passer. As long as Myles Garrett's out on the field, you're going to be putting pressure on that quarterback and forcing opposing quarterbacks to throw it quickly. You've got a secondary that can do what it needs to do essentially behind them. And they ran a ton of man coverage last year. For the most part, it worked. It pretty much worked all year long. They got a little bit of exposed in the playoff game. CJ Stroud had a really good game against under pressure, which normally he's not very good under pressure. And he just, sometimes you have good games when you're under pressure. You saw it the next week. He was under pressure a bunch and was not very good against the Baltimore Ravens. So, I think for the Browns, they need to have adjustments based on what they can do well. So like when you look at the best defenses, of all time, or just like even get teams that kind of lean on their defense in a way of leading them to, deep playoff runs or even the Super Bowls. Look at Bill Belichick's defenses over the years. Obviously you have Tom Brady on the other side of the ball, but they could change what they did week to week, and they could change in game in terms of adjusting to the opponent's game plan to be able to shut them down. And when you play against the best teams, you have to be able to do that. So from a player standpoint, I don't worry about the players on the field. I think for me, from a defensive standpoint, is like, how are they going to be able to pivot off of what they do really well and have a B plan and a C plan in games, in season, now that teams have an entire offseason to kind of study and maybe find the weaknesses in that defense that they had this past year.
There's no question. And, really, really, looking forward to it. And certainly offense, new offense coordinator, new offensive line coach. And, there's going to be so much change there as far as, things we've grown accustomed to. It's very rare that you have, a 4-year run like the Browns did with most of the talent, with most of the coaching on the offensive side of the ball. Lots of changes there. Certainly, something fun as well to just watch, the adaptation, the change, and basically starting to get an idea of what's going to be the next version of the Cleveland Browns offensive line. Going to continue on here. PFS John Kosko in for the ride. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the #1 finance destination, including a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Security Link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. Again, yahoofinance.com. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make sure you can your car is the MVP and can bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Jeff Lloyd, joined by PFF's John Kosko. Your latest Locked On Browns rolls on. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. If you're not part of the everyday crowd by now, make a new plan, stance, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcast. Now, John, we don't have the dates yet, but yes, it's a formality, and we'll just see when they're going to be played. But we obviously know all 17 opponents. There are some big measuring sticks, not just the AFC North games for the Browns this year. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs, you've got the Miami Dolphins, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles, you've got the Dallas Cowboys. The schedule is going to be a little bit tougher, certainly, than it was last year, and there's going to be some big games to measure yourself against. What you were last year, what you're going to be this year. Look, iron sharpens iron. I don't want to hear, oh, well, it's an easy schedule. The easy schedule doesn't necessarily give you the best overall view of what your team is. When you start playing teams that are regular playoff teams, you kind of probably have a better idea where you're at. And for the Browns, it's going to be a little bit tougher go in 2024, but you expect that. You were coming off a playoff season last year. You weren't expecting to get the easiest schedule in the NFL the following season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want the hardest schedule year in, year out, because that's going to make you better. And that means that you've had a good previous season. So exactly, you're going to be playing the more, slightly more difficult schedules than usual. And, you're talking about opponents that you'll have at home. You want to talk about, the going against the Kansas City Chiefs at home. Like you're going to get that. And, that's the ultimate measuring stick, because they've been to, Super Bowls out of 4 to the last 5 years. They've won 3 of them. That's essentially like you've got to be able to measure up to that. We saw that a couple of years ago in 2021, where, obviously you lose to them in the playoffs the year before at their turf, and then you lose in, kind of another heartbreaking fashion in a sense on opening weekend. You've kind of felt like, hey, we're very close, and, this is the team you have your measuring stick against. Obviously things unraveled a bit at that point. So, even though it'll be, who knows when that game will be, but that would be a big opponent, obviously. And then you're looking at, some really quality quarterbacks that you're going to be going up against, and teams that have been in the playoffs, like the Miami Dolphins. No matter what you think about Tua Tagovailoa, they're an ultra productive offense, and you're going to have to beat them at home. Obviously, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, Justin Herbert and the Chargers. So you're going to face some really good quarterbacks, and you'll have some that are cupcakes and stuff like that on the road. You have the Raiders. They don't really have on the road. They don't really have a quarterback to speak home about. Either Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. Both guys can play, but it's not like they're going to scare you at all. You get Trevor Lawrence on the road. And then you also get Jalen Hurts on the road. So I think your road schedule from a quality quarterback standpoint is probably easier, because you got the Saints, the Commanders, the Broncos, those guys as well that won't have top tier type of quarterback. So, I think the Browns' opponents it's a little bit more difficult, but that's exactly what you want. They're rostered, they're built to be able to stand up to that.
8 at home this year, 9 on the road. We'll see which way the Jacksonville game works. Me personally, I don't know, just, seeing when you're offering, me some travel packages to Jacksonville, I have a hard time believing that this team may be going to London. We'll see, of course. But, you're hoping, and maybe, look, last year the season was supposed to close on the road in Cincinnati. You kind of think that maybe there's an opportunity. The most likely that's going to be a division game, probably at home to close out the 2024 season. And you get to it, whether it's Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, some of the faces change, some of the names change. But, like you said earlier, this is a really, really difficult division. These teams just know each other so well. And just because one team may end up as a 7-win team this year, I'm not knocking you, Pittsburgh. I just think you're a year away. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be easy games when you face the Pittsburgh Steelers. The familiarity, these teams understand each other all so well. You look at the coaching, every head coach has been here forever. There's a lot going on with this division, and these games certainly we know will be crucial. But each year that most of these key players and key coaches remain around, you don't know how these games are going to work because they all know each other so well. They know how to basically yin to the yang.
Yeah, exactly. How often do you see a blowout in this division? It's not very often, right? Like it's very competitive. They know each other like the back of their hand, and it's always going to be just like I said earlier, a bloodbath, and it's smash mouth type of football. Even though the league is obviously trending towards obviously a much more passing league, and you still get that. Like the Ravens are definitely not the Ravens, but the Bengals are a much more pass heavy team. They're not going to smash you in the mouth. But the Ravens are. They're going to do that, and the Pittsburgh Steelers definitely are going to be wanting to do that with Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator, and that's the style of ball he likes to play. So the Browns, I think, are going to be kind of trending more towards the Bengals kind of side of things, while still wanting to, they obviously have Nick Chubb as your running back, and they have a really good offensive line when they're all healthy to be able to smash mouth and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be. You're probably going to start the season against a division opponent, and you're going to end the season with a division opponent. And those games are obviously the most important generally towards winning the division and getting into the playoffs. So you're going to have to be able to step up right to the plate right off the bat and then finish strong in the season. Browns are a bit lucky last year where they didn't have to play their Week 18 game, their final game of the season. And that's a good luxury to have. To be able to rest up for the playoffs, even though it didn't work out in the playoffs. But I think it's one of those things where, they'll probably be at home, like you said, and likely against, probably I would like to see the Steelers at home in the final game. I think that's the, you talk about your ultimate rival, but we'll see what the NFL does.
Well, obviously, look, if you're telling me my choices are most likely at home to close out within the division, I don't want to play Baltimore Week 18. I probably don't want to play Cincinnati Week 18. So if I'm thinking I'm getting the lightest of the three, and not necessarily as loud, I'll take Pittsburgh Week 18. We got bodies in the building. We got all the youth coming. We're going to talk a little bit rookie camp kicking off. Obviously, a lot of changes with the Browns. Certainly offensive side of the ball. So much newness. Faces that have been there for 4 years. So much newness. Running back coach, offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, et cetera, et cetera. Some thoughts on that. John Kosko, PFF, along for the ride. This next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who is unbiased on your life. So today I want to say how I really feel about something. Teenagers are trouble. I don't mean my kids are trouble. It's just difficult keeping up with them. And you say, hey, this is what we got planned today. And then it's, well, can I do that, that, and that? And you spent an entire day trying to put together a schedule that is no longer feasible and has been blown to bits in one quick text from a friend about going here, going there. But Identifying topics that allow you to be authentically upset, sad, excited. That's a huge, huge part. And you need to talk through that. You know what you need to do is you maybe need to consider starting therapy. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you were thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, your host, Jeff Lloyd. We are joined by PFF's John Kosko at John Kosko3. Discussed, obviously, a little bit about the Browns roster versus the AFC North, the schedule. Rookie camp is here, and it is ready to pop. Browns have 5 of 6 rookies signed to this point. Bunch of undrafted free agents coming, bunch of tryout guys coming to camp, all getting started here on Friday. But some newness to it, obviously, on the coaching side, offensive side of the ball. The Browns probably looking to maybe get that spark on the offensive side of the ball that all the changes did to the defensive side of the ball last year and what it provided for that team in 2023. But, John, like the draft is over, but now you start to put something to it. Mike Hall in, Zach Zinter in, first looks at Jamari Thrash as these guys, go through that weird tiny window of, we're sort of NFL players, but then in a couple of weeks when everybody comes back, that's it. We are truly NFL players, truly Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, this is when they're obviously getting the first install of the playbook, and it's the biggest probably shock for rookies of man, this is like a massive.
Have you ever seen the King James Bible?
Right, exactly. And Dan Orlovsky had actually a video on Twitter yesterday, or X now, whatever it's called, of basically what is expected for a rookie and rookie minicamp, and how why some rookies don't play right off the bat. You have to learn that playbook, and some people can pick it up faster than others, but if you looked at that video and thought to yourself, man, this is overwhelming, that's a ton of stuff to learn. It's well, there you go. This is why you shouldn't expect your rookies to be, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes day one or something like that. Right. So it's, these guys are going to be learning a lot. They throw as much at them as possible early on to see what sticks and what doesn't. And, it's their first taste back into the NFL. So, rookies, this group, I think, is probably not talked about very much, across the national media, because obviously you don't have a first round pick. They were the last team in the draft to make a pick, with their pick 54. So I think it's for this unit, they have a lot to prove. They can have a chip on their shoulder, and they have a lot to live up to, and a very tough roster to make. I think the first few years in Andrew Berry's tenure, every single rookie was making the roster. That's probably not going to happen this year. I think you're going to see some of the guys not make the roster. The day 3 guys. I think you can probably pencil in obviously the day 2 and guys that were picked and all, but I think it's going to be more difficult to crack the starting 53. They're not the starting lineup, but definitely the starting lineup. But the active 53 on this team. So they've got to hit the ground running, and it's gonna be exciting to see what these guys can do, because I think this is also the first year that Andrew Berry's kind of really differed from the PFF big board, which is an interesting thing, because a lot of times they're picking guys that are high on our draft board early on and getting actually based on our numbers and stuff like that, really good value from players. And this year's it was different. We had Michael Hall as a third rounder. We had Jamari Thrash higher than what he was picked, but then, gosh, why is it the second pick slipping my
Zach
mind?
Zinter.
We had Zinter further down. We had him as a fourth rounder or whatever. So it's interesting to see, maybe from a different standpoint. And I can also say though, we have, I don't know if anybody watches PFF YouTube channel and podcasts and stuff like that. We have our in-game athleticism score stuff based on computer vision and computer tracking type of stuff. And all these guys were actually really really top notch in terms of this draft class. So it'll be interesting to see from a measurable standpoint of that, that was, they picked athletic guys. So it'll be interesting to see and how it all shakes out.
If you don't have a lot of holes, usually what are you going to do? You're going to gamble on athleticism. So, hey, and then that's what it comes into. And certainly this is going to be something, it's going to be a focus certainly on the new offensive staff, but certainly on the defensive staff is, look, we got you athletes. They kind of know what they're doing. You got to find a way to get said athlete to work within our system. And crazy enough, for most of these guys that are, going to be in here this weekend, it's not necessarily about showing off for the Cleveland Browns because the opportunity may not be here. It's more about maybe showing off for the Carolina Panthers, the et ceteras of the world, where you may have an opportunity to actually make a 53-man roster and actually play. So, a lot of fun here, certainly transitioning back to on-field. Look, love free agency, love the draft process, but nothing beats the real thing. Getting back on, put mouthpieces in, strap them up, the click-clack of the helmet. Oh, God, it's still my favorite. One of my favorite sounds in the absolute world is chin straps going on and off of helmets. There's just absolutely nothing like it. John, always appreciative of the time. Good, sir. So you have Browns minicamp this weekend. Look, Cavaliers fans, enjoy yourself. Obviously, Saturday night should be fun. Definitely a little doom gloom, right? Where it went from about 90 minutes where you all thought, yeah, I don't even know if I'm going to go this weekend, to now, I'm sure somehow, some way, through social media, we'll find out that 80,000 people were at the Cavaliers game Saturday night. It's the way it always works. Appreciate, as always, everybody who listens to the show, makes Locked On Browns your first listen every day. The everyday crowd, you're a bunch of filthy animals, but you're my filthy animals. Join the filthy animals. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.